Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's Tracy at TierraCast. Checking to see if everything's going to work properly. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday morning live stream, jewelry making demo. Today we are doing, if you watched us last week, we did a demo of our Carnival earrings, and the original version, got you backwards. Original version is this copper one, and these use our larger cord ends. And so the original version was the copper one. Sorry, it's so hard to keep track of what's what when you're trying to look at the camera and look at the stream. So yeah, the original ones are these beautiful little copper ones. We call them Carnival earrings, and we did a kind of a beachy palette version last week because, you know, it's summer and these have always felt like very festival type earrings to us. And I thought, okay, beach music festival or something. So that was fun last week. And what we wanted to do, what we kept talking about, was doing a bracelet version. So I put together a prototype, and we've got a project loaded on the website with a downloadable project sheet for you. And this is what we're going to demo today. Hope everybody is well. It's not such a summery day here today. It's a little bit gray and overcast and foggy, which is kind of normal for our area, but we've had so much heat and dry weather lately that we really, any little moisture that we get, we're so happy for. So we're happy to have that fog and a little bit of dampness right now. Julie's with us. She is going to be hanging out with you guys and answering questions and monitoring comments. So she's here. She did tell me this morning that she has like tree removal work going on right outside her office window. She works from home.
The neighbors.
Yeah. She's here. So she's going to keep her system on mute unless she needs to pop in. But so she might not be as talkative as she normally is. Oh, hold on.
I just saw the screen do the blank thing.
I did. I'm switching it. I'm fixing it. We know we're getting, so we know the tricks a little better. So if we're on the right view, that shouldn't happen when Julie talks. It should just stay on me. Let's see if it does what it's supposed to. All right, so I'm going to switch my camera down to my work surface so that we can get started. And hopefully Julie did post a link to the project for you, because in case you want to look at that project sheet and follow along, you know, it has the part list, it has all the parts that we used for the project. And
I'm doing it right now, Tracy.
Oh, fabulous. And it's also, you know, I posted it in the, I think I posted it in the event page too. So it's been posted a few times, but when you guys are actually watching, that's also a great time to do that because then it's right there in the comments. So yeah, there's a downloadable project sheet for you guys that you can look at and follow along or print to do this project another time. It really is. I loved the way the bracelet version turned out. So what I'm using is one of the things I was interested in showing is the original earring version uses one of our cord ends that has a loop at the top. So it's a glue-in type of thing. So you would use your favorite glue or jewelry adhesive. I probably used E6000 for this. And you glue them in. But there are also cord ends that have a hole, and those are intended for wire wrapping. And I did want to show that process in this second version. We do not, the original one, the cord end is an 8mm. Let me move those out of the way a little bit. An 8mm opening, and we don't have currently in our cast pewter line, we don't have an 8mm cord end that has a hole, so I'm using a 6mm. I think it's on our to-do list to create some larger ones that have a hole that are great for wire wrapping. We just don't have them available yet. So this bracelet version uses the 6mm. And so I used a slightly smaller bead. I used the earring version uses size 8s. With the bracelet, I use size 11s, and I just made a little mix. It's got some light blue in there, and it's got some purple and light green and orange, and it's just a super fun mix. Regrettably, sometimes I have materials lying around the shop that have been here for a long time, and I don't necessarily know where they came from. And people are often with seed beads are very interested in buying seed bead blends, and I don't think that this was a blend that you can buy. I might be wrong, because it is one of those things that's been sitting around the shop for a while. Just such a great little blend. But I don't, like I'm trying to say, it's Tuesday, but it feels like a Monday because the shop was closed yesterday. So I might be a little slow and clunky this morning. Don't think it was the blend that we purchased. I think it was something that just got mixed together. But, you know, you could check around and see if there's a size 11 blend that would that is kind of a similar palette. So we're using that little 8 size 11 seed bead blend. And we've got one of our heirloom clasps, which is one of our, if not, I don't think it's our highest selling toggle clasp, but it's definitely one of our top sellers. It's been in our product offerings for, gosh, almost the duration. It's been around for a long time.
Number 1 is our bar and ring.
Oh, that's small. And that one goes way back. That was probably one of the first clasps that we made. But this one is very popular, and it's one of my favorites. It's got such lovely, lovely detailing. And these two items were made many, many, many years apart, but I love how nicely they play together. The design and the texture on the heirloom, and then the temple design that was part of our caravan collection. The original temple pattern was part of our caravan collection a couple years back, and then this cord end came out with our finishing touches. That I think was the beginning of 2019. And if you're not familiar with our website, you can find there's a section that has our collections. So whenever I mention a collection, you can actually look up that collection on our website. So let's see. I wrote up these instructions last week on Friday, maybe. And so in theory, I should know exactly what I'm doing. But, you know, let me refresh my memory. The first thing I'm going to do is, because we're going to do the same process that we did with the earrings, where I strung my little seed bead sections. I strung them onto some braided bead thread, some Fireline. You can also use Wildfire. You can use your favorite beading thread. I prefer the braided and bonded because I don't split my thread when I'm working with a bead weave design, and I just find it easier to work with. But you can use whatever your favorite beading thread is if you're a seed bead, if you work with seed beads. So I strung my seed beads onto some Fireline, and then I attached them to jump rings, and then also attached jump rings to these little pieces of suede lace. And then I wired those all together and then glued them inside. So we're going to use the same process with this. And I just want to make a note that you could also do this with a fine beading wire. Because of the nature of the design, I would go with the finest and most flexible that you had, so that these aren't too stiff. They kind of have some nice movement, and you can twist the bracelet together a little bit. So if you want to use beading wire and crimps, you could certainly do that. For this design, it would be a pretty easy modification. But I'm using the Fireline today. And because I'm going to be attaching those to some jump rings, the first thing I'm going to do is close. And there's going to be 3 of these strands. and a jump ring is going to be at both ends. So I'm going to close very securely these jump rings. I want to make sure there's no gap in the jump rings, because I don't want that fine beading thread to slip out. And I could have done this in advance, but what the heck, here we are. I do try to do as many things as I can in advance for these demos, but I don't want to rob you guys and not have you see the process of the different things. So,
You know, that's bringing up for me, Tracy, that we get asked a lot for soldered jump rings.
mm-hmm.
And that's just not a US product.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
When you
I
get
remember someone
soldered,
asking
that's
that last
happening in some country where they're paying somebody to do it, and that's not
Right.
here.
Someone did ask that last week, I remember, if you could use closed jump rings, and you certainly could. However, I'm also going to be using jump rings to attach things towards the end. So you'll need traditional jump rings that open as well.
Yeah,
So
just closing those things is, you know, it's a job.
Oh, it is. So as I was closing all 6 of those, because that's what it told me to do on my instructions, then of course I remembered that I already set up some of the strands. So when I was setting up the demo last week, before we closed for the weekend, I did one strand. So you can see I attached it to one of the closed jump rings at this end, which I'm going to show you, and then attached it to a second one down at the other end. And the way I started the whole thing, for this bracelet, I'm going for 7.5-inch bracelet. My example is a little bit shorter, but I have a very small wrist myself, so I tend to make them a little small. And then I get reprimanded by the other people on the TierraCast team who need bigger bracelets. And so I try to make an effort to make them a little bigger. This one will be 7.5 inches. So
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome, Julie. So the strand that I beaded for this, what will be a 7.5-inch bracelet, is just about 6 inches long. And this, the toggle and the cord ends to finish it will take up about 2 inches. So trust me when I say that it sounds like the math might be a little wonky, but it should end up being just about 7.5 inches. And that information, there's, I didn't include that. Sometimes when I'm writing instructions, I'll make sure I say, oh, you know, if you want to adjust the length, remove this many beads or add this many beads. I didn't do that on this one, but you know, you guys are smart. You'll figure it out. So to start this, I cut a 20-inch piece of beading thread, and I'm going to go ahead and, so I finished one strand. I started a second strand. I'm going to go ahead and start the third strand just so you guys can see the process. So I need about 20 inches. And then I'm going to fold that in half. And I'm going to attach that folded end to one of those jump rings with a lark's head knot. And sometimes people know what this knot is, but they don't realize what it's called. So this is a lark's head knot. I looped the loop through the jump ring where the thread is folded, and then I'm going to take the ends and tuck them through that loop. And I'm holding onto the jump ring so the whole knot doesn't come undone. And then I'm pulling that tight. And that is a lark's head knot. So I wanted to demo that for you so you would know how I attached the thread on this one. And then once I have that attached, I'm using a big eye needle, and I just threaded my ends of the thread into that big eye needle. And then I start picking up my seed beads. And I'm going to want about 6 inches. And if you have what are those called, Julie? Those
Bead spinners.
bead spinners.
And I'll tell you, if you've ever seen somebody use them that knows how to use them, they are fabulous.
They are. And I don't have one in the shop right now, unfortunately. So I'm just doing this the by hand way. And what I do is I just pour my beads onto the mat and kind of pile them up a little bit. And then I just repeatedly poke my needle in there and it gradually picks up the beads.
That's a pretty good way.
Yeah, it's the don't have a bead spinner around way for sure. And my metal ruler is sitting right underneath my wrist and my metal bracelet is clanking against it. So let me just move that. And it goes pretty quickly. Julie, maybe you can find, I don't know, a link or an image for a bead spinner.
Oh, yeah.
To post in case people aren't familiar with them.
Sure. Ruth Ann is asking, does the 6 inches of seed beads include the jump rings at each end?
No, I want 6 inches of just the beads. And you can see how fast it's going. It's pretty quick. Which is why I chose to, I could have done 2 of them in advance. But I figured it would go fast enough where I just did the one and started the second one. And you can see I'm just kind of matching up to see if I'm at the right length yet. And I hope everyone had a fun weekend. It was a holiday weekend, Independence Day. Whoops, getting my strands tangled up. I didn't do anything exciting, but we were closed for an extra day on the weekend. So that was pretty nice to have an extra day. And I have fruit trees, and some of my apples from the tree that kind of produces apples first. I have 2 different varieties. And the one that produces first is just now starting to produce some usable apples. And so I got enough of those to make my first apple pie of the season. So that was my nod to the 4th of July this year. It's about as exciting as it got.
You have some amazing sunflowers in your front yard.
Yeah, those are volunteers. We planted those.
The volunteers are the strongest, best, hardiest ones. But I was driving by and I looked over and I was like, boy, that is something else.
You were driving by and you didn't stop by for a glass of wine?
I was in a hurry somewhere.
Okay, you guys, I'm fussing with this because I'm pulling I want a little more to work with because now I've got my 6 inches of beads and I'm going to pick up one of those closed jump rings and thread that onto the needle. And then I'm going back through a few of those beads. So just like a 1/4 inch worth, it doesn't have to be very many. And you may find, because hopefully you know, that there can be quite a variation in the holes of seed beads. So you might be working with a particular type of seed bead and it's all working just fine, and then one will hang up, which is what's happening here, one of these little green seed beads. But if I'm gentle, I can just pull that through. All right, so need to get a grip on that jump ring. And then I'm just gonna tighten that all up and make sure I've got all the slack taken up. I don't want any cord showing, so I'm pulling that enough to take up the slack and tuck that jump ring right close to the end of my bead strand. And if you've done any seed bead work, you know that there's a weaving and knotting process. And that's basically what I'm doing. I've just wrapped my thread around that strand and threaded the needle through the loop that I created, and I just tied a little overhand knot. And I'm taking very special care to make sure that knot stays right there where my needle exited. I don't want to wrap it around any of the other seed beads. And then I'm going to snug that, pull it tight, and then I'm going to thread my needle through a few more beads and repeat that. So I'm just, if you're working with seed beads, I'm just weaving and knotting at this point. So thread it through a few more. And if my needle gets kind of stuck, I find it helpful to just grab it with a pair of pliers. Pull that tight again. Repeat that knotting. Just wrap the cord around and then thread my needle through the loop. And then pull that knot tight where the needle came out. So if you were instead using beading wire and crimps, whoops, hold on. Doing that talking and demoing at the same time thing, and sometimes it doesn't work. Then you would have just threaded your wire through the jump ring. You would have threaded, after all your seed beads, you would have threaded on a crimp bead here, threaded your needle through the jump ring and back through the crimp bead and a few beads, and then you would have used crimping pliers to secure that. Now, the concern with using beading wire and crimp beads is that you'd want to make sure that whatever seed beads you're using, everything's going to fit. So I'm just thinking, if I was using beading wire, I may not be able to thread that wire back through a few beads like I am doing with the string, or the thread, I should say. So in that case, you would just crimp it and trim it right there at the end of the crimp. All right, so I got my 2 knots, and now I'm just going to thread a couple more beads, pull it tight, make sure everything's nice and tight, and then I can trim that off. So that is the second strand. And now I can pick up that third one that we prepped, that we added the thread to the jump ring with the Lark's head knot. And I'm just threading the ends through my needle. And I've not been watching the comments or anything to see who's watching, but whoever, often we have some regulars, and if you're here, hi, nice to see you.
Pam just asked what size needle you are using.
Oh, it's a big eye needle. They're my favorites.
Is it just one size?
They do have longer ones, but this is just the kind of the standard 2-inch big eye needle.
But I mean the thickness, the same.
As far as I know, I've not been aware of varying sizes for this type of needle. If there is, that is news to me.
So just how long they are is the only.
Yeah, okay. From what I know. And I think these are pretty easy to find. Just, you can Google big eye needle.
I love them.
I know, they're my favorites.
My eyes thank them.
So again, just scooping up my 6 inches of beads. What I find interesting and kind of entertaining about this, Julie, is in theory it should be extremely random what beads get picked up, Right. And then I'll end up with like a long chunk of one color, and I'm like, how is that happening?
Maybe some of them have bigger holes.
That is true. But even so, even some of the littler ones, I'll end up just with some big stretch of the same color. It's a mystery.
One of life's mysteries.
Yep.
So I'm just looking at big eye needles to see. Aha, different diameters.
Really? I should probably get some of those into the shop so I can play with that.
Well, live and learn. Learn something every day.
Whoever asked that, very good question. Thank you. We learn stuff from the people who are watching as much as they learn stuff from us. That's for sure.
I find that I learn it and forget it and learn it and forget it. Learn it. Oh, over and over again.
Hey, where are we at?
Oh, Kelly came on and said big eye needles in 2.25. Oh, okay, Kelly. What about thicknesses, millimeters? She's online. We got an expert there to tell us
There you
something.
go. Kelly works for Beadalon, and they do make some big eye needles. We'll see what variety. All right, am I at 6 inches? Let's check.
Oh, she says medium 0.022 and coming out in a heavy or out in a heavy and an extra fine. Okay.
Oh, they've got new ones coming.
Sounds like it.
Oh. All right, where are we at? I have, it looks like a few too many on this one. So, and here's where I love the big eye needle. I can just take that off, take the needle off, scoop a few beads off. I could try to thread the needle back through, the beads, but that can get kind of fussy. Maybe one more bead. And also, I don't think it's necessary that these strands are exactly the same length. There can be some variation because it's a multi-strand and, it's a lot of movement in the strands. And got one more.
At the beginning and wondered what the jump rings were. They looked like the 0018s. Is that what they were?
No, these are the 0016s. That's our smallest. And that's because I'm tucking all of this stuff up into the opening of this cord end. So I wanted the smallest.
Wow.
Smallest.
I never use those.
Oh, I use them a lot. So now I've reached the end of my strand and I'm just going to repeat. I strung on that last closed jump ring. And I need to keep that down at the end of the beads. I don't want it sliding over the beads. And then I can thread my needle back through a few and repeat that whole knotting sequence that we did on the other one. Somebody's car alarm's going off in the parking lot. I hope it's not mine. And I'm done with these.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I'm done with these, so I'm going to scoop them out of the way.
Angela really likes the combination of colors you're using, and I do too.
It's so fun.
It's very inviting.
This is a nice trick, you guys. When I'm doing this, I'll just take a head pin and poke that through the jump ring, and it just gives me leverage when I'm pulling on this to take up all the slack and tighten everything up. So random trick. So wrap around, thread the needle through that little loop. Oops. And my needle. That is the downside of big eye needles, is if you are using one a lot, it kind of starts getting worn out. And it kind of doesn't grip. Also, I can't see the ends of these threads at all, guys. I'm threading blind here. Yeah, this starts getting a little worn out, and then it might not hold the threads as securely. So that's when I tuck the threads down towards the end, because it will hold better. So one more time, wrap the needle around, thread the needle through. Make sure my knot is staying where my needle exited the beads. Needle through a few more beads.
Lynn agrees with you that the tiny size of jump rings comes in handy.
Yeah, it's there, you know, when you really want, you can see that one of the loops of my knot kind of got left behind, guys. So I'm catching that up. They're the most like, what's the word?
Invisible?
Discreet. They're very discreet. You know, you can kind of, they're not big and noticeable in your design.
I just really am thinking about it. I just can hardly remember ever using them. But then
Really?
again, I'm known for bigger
Bigger
design.
jewelry. Julie wears bigger jewelry. Okay, got my second knot. Tightened up. I'm going to thread that needle through the last few beads so I can trim it. Just hiding the tail, basically, is what I'm doing. And I'm giving this a good pull to make sure all those knots are kind of tight before I trim it. And that's it for the needlework. So there's my 3 strands. And now what I need to do is cut some strands of my suede lace. And I want 6 1/4, each strand to be 6 1/4 inch. And again, you know, very close, but they don't have to be exact. There can be a little bit of variation in these cord lengths, and that will be okay. I've got 3 colors of this is microfiber faux suede lace. Comes in a lot of lovely colors. You could also use just regular suede lace, which also comes in a lot of colors. But this is nice. This is nice because it's, you know, vegetarian.
It's vegan.
Vegan. All right.
Lynn wants to know what size seed beads you're using.
Those are size 11.
Oh, that was Lulu actually that wanted to know. Size 11. That's what I thought.
Hold on. I'm looking for a pen. So on the earrings, remember that this cord end was bigger. So in the directions, I made a mark like 1/4 inch from the ends of my suede lace strands. But for this one, because I'm working with a smaller cord end, I want less. So I'm going to make my mark 1/8 inch from the end, approximately. Obviously, I'm not measuring, but I'm eyeballing it. But there's a ruler right here, you know, hopefully you'll have a ruler handy. And then I'm going to use an awl. You could also use, you know, I was thinking, Julie, not everybody has an awl, a beading awl. So I was thinking of an alternative and wondering if a push pin would work. So I'm going to actually try that. Don't really have as much leverage with a push pin, but let's see.
Everybody should have an awl. Everybody.
Yeah, they are very useful. And I don't think that, oh, you know what I need? I need something to push against. All right, so try this with a little block underneath it.
Think pure steers, Tracy.
Pierced ears.
You got to have the potato behind the ear.
Exactly. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so that works. So if someone doesn't have an awl, they could do the pierced ear method.
I like that you do
no one's piercing their ears with push pins. That doesn't
I like
sound
that you show us hacks. That's good because even though we all should have all these fantastic tools, we do find ourselves places without them sometimes.
right. So, be innovative, but don't pierce yours with push pins.
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think that's a good idea.
No.
All right, so I got a hole in there and I'm just attaching a jump ring now through that hole. I probably should have done some of these in advance, but I didn't, so you guys are just gonna have to be patient. It'll be a slightly fussy little process for a few minutes. And I am going right back to the awl because the push pin did work. We proved that, so yay, but the awl will be quicker.
I use my awl for so many things. You know, those locks that don't use keys and the grandchildren get lock themselves in and you have to have a little tool just to unlock the door. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Like the bathroom door, is that what you said?
Yeah, just those doors.
Yes.
Well, it's perfect.
Emergency bathroom keys. Had not considered that one. What I also like about the awl is, it's got such a long, what would you call that, needle type of end that is graduated. So I can push this way the heck down there to open that hole up as much as possible. And that makes it easier to get the jump ring in there. In theory. There we go.
I like that you do it that way. I bet a lot of people would just grab those ends and wire wrap them. And this is so much more secure to me.
That would be a good, well, yeah, I guess you could do that. So you guys can see I'm just, I made the mark on them and now I'm just poking the awl through where I marked it and attaching a jump ring at the hole. I suppose I could get, well, I was just going to say maybe leather hole punching pliers, Julie, but they don't. The holes would be too big for this
I
little.
think so. Those strips are very narrow, and you have a lot of control over how big you get that hole with that awl. So
yeah, I think that the hole punching pliers would be too big of a hole.
I do.
The smallest I've seen that is like a 2 millimeter. Really is very helpful to really push that down to make the hole big. Really, I promise this isn't going to take all day. All right, so that's 2 of 3. Where's my green one? There it is. I do like when I'm when I'm writing instructions though, Julie, I do like to give people alternatives of the less common tools.
I love that. I love that you do that.
But still, you're right. Everyone should have one of these. And use it with care because it's so sharp. Your tree trimming sounds pretty quiet.
I muted. No, I'm trying to mute when they're really going for it. So Ruth Ann wonders if the suede ever rips out from the awl hole. Oh, I'm wondering if she's wondering after you've put it together.
Well, I would have to say that this bracelet has not been wear tested. But so no, I haven't had that happen. I suppose in theory it could, but boy, it seems like it would take a pretty traumatic event because it's pretty sturdy stuff.
Well, it's kind of got the all of the strings working together So not
Yeah.
any one is getting too much tension, hopefully.
Exactly. And this is pretty sturdy stuff. It's not real delicate, tearing easily, not at all.
So we don't know, Ruth.
Yeah, good question. All right, now, and someone could, if they were concerned about that, we're wire wrapping this, but that wouldn't stop you from putting a little glue in there before you pull everything up in there too. So that would be extra security if you were concerned about that. Is just using some glue in there. All right, so I've got all my strands already. I have 3 suede lace and 3 beaded strands. And the next thing I'm going to do is cut, I've got some 24 gauge craft wire. I'm cutting a 3-inch piece and I'm just making a curve. I used my round nose pliers at the widest point to just make a curve right kind of in the center. And now I'm going to string on all of my little components and I'm alternating. Oops, that's a not very well closed jumper. Let me just fix that, even though it's going to be tucked up inside. So I'm alternating suede lace, beaded strand, suede lace, beaded strand, etc. Well, that one's not very closed very well either. All right, so I've got all the pieces on there. Before I pull them up in there, I just want to kind of make sure they stay in their alternated, not get too overlapped. And then I'm threading the ends of the wire up into the cord end. There's an up through the hole up there. And this is where if you wanted, I could have put a little bit of E6000 up in there for the extra security. And take my chain nose pliers and grab those ends and just pull the whole assembly up into the cord end securely. And this is where I could just make sure my strands are kind of alternated the way I want them and don't get stuck in there with all the bead strands in a clump or something. I want to make sure they're kind of alternated. So I've got those pulled all the way up. And now I have a choice. I can use, in my original version, I did kind of the double loop wire wrap. I don't know if there's an official name for that, but every once in a while when I'm doing a wrap in one of these cord ends, I just roll both strands of wire over and then do my wire wrap. So my little loop is 2 layers of wire. I can do that, or I can fold one of these over and wrap it around the other one a couple times to secure it and trim that off. And then just use the second piece of wire to make a single. So that's kind of a designer's choice right there, depending on how you like to make your wrapped loops. We have on our blog and on our YouTube channel, we have basics videos that show you how to do wrapped loops and simple loops and crimping and all those kind of basic jewelry making techniques. So if someone was new to this and didn't really know the ins and outs of simple loops and wrapped loops, you could go there and look. That is not the tidiest wrapped loop I've ever done in my life. And something I like to do is, if you have crimping pliers, you know how they have the kind of curved notch at the very front. I'm actually going to use the bigger pair. They have the curved notch. I like to use that with my wrapped loops to kind of tuck the wrapped, tuck the wrap kind of round and tuck those ends in.
That is a super good tip.
Yeah. So then I have my little single wire wrapped loop. And I need to repeat that whole process at the other end. So about 3 to 4 inches of wire. And kind of make a curve at the center. And start stringing the strands at the other end. And
Can you do
again,
any
I'm going
kind
to
of a pattern, like when you're doing this, when you put them on through on the other end? Like
I'm just kind of laying them out so that I am paying attention because I don't want to get them all twisted up. Then again, I could just twist them up and go for it.
you don't want them all straight exactly either, do you?
That's true. Okay, let's play with this a little bit.
It's like a little braid.
Yeah, or just a twist.
Loose braid, yeah. Oh, there they go again.
I do want to alternate them. Okay, got all of them on there. I think it looks just fine. I suppose you could just play with that some more about getting them in an order that makes sense, and or maybe it really doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't seem like it matters.
It doesn't. It seems like they'll just, the nature of the design, things are just going to land where they land. But I am making sure remember how at this end I wanted to make sure they were really still kind of alternated? Just doing the same thing here. And then I'm going to grab the ends and pull everything up in there. Getting stuck on my tools. And I'm wrapping this around. What I'm noticing is that some of the suede lace feels a little bit too long. So I'm not probably going to go in and fix that right now. But if you found that to be the case, then what you could do is just pull this off and maybe redo these suede pieces with holes a little bit further in and reattach your jump rings.
Oh, we have viewers that would be doing that right now.
But I think if it's nice and twisted, it actually looks just fine.
Oh yeah, but you know.
So on this side, I'm just going to do that, what I call my double wire wrapped loop.
Lynn says you could braid it lightly, and you know you could. That's another look that this bracelet could have if somebody wanted to do that.
So I just rolled both the wire ends around this time, and I'm just taking them both and doing a wrapped loop.
I was totally thinking that's what I would do. Extra strength and a bolder finish, which, you know, again, I always like things kind of big.
And then I'm going to use my crimp tool to tidy that up a little bit. Make sure my ends aren't sticking out too much. Okay. And then the last thing we have to do is just attach those clasp components. So I need a single jump ring for the clasp ring.
Are you using the teeny tinies for that too?
I am.
Wow, blowing my mind.
So I'm going to get out one of this one I think is our 3x2 millimeter. And this came up last week, I think, or somewhere. All of our jump rings, if you look on our website at our jump rings, the measurements are all the inside dimension of the wire. So the inside diameter of the little oval is 3 by 2, and the larger oval, this is the 0018 Julie mentioned, which is the one that she uses much more than this little one. And you can see it's kind of a big size difference. And you could certainly use those ones to attach these. But what I was saying is that when you're looking at our jump rings, that measurement is the inside dimensions of the opening of the jump ring. So on this other side, I'm using 2 jump rings, one to attach to the wrap loop and a second one to attach the bar. And for a toggle clasp, that extra maneuverability for the clasp bar is important. So an extra jump ring, you wouldn't want to just use one jump ring to attach the bar. You want to use at least 2, and some people swear by 3 to make sure that you can manipulate that clasp bar and attach and close your toggle.
That's crazy talk. I think 3 might be right if what you had was really stiff. But you're saying, I'm looking, and what you're doing, I almost wonder if it even needs 2 because it's got the wire loop.
But there's just not enough room. I always go with 2.
I do too.
I always go with the 2. And there we go. I do, but I have, heard of people preferring 3.
Crazy.
I know, crazy, nuts. Let's see how long this ended up being. I estimated that it would be 7.5.
Really beautiful, Tracy.
Yeah, pretty much right on there. So that's our little Carnival bracelet. Julie, we talked about doing this, and there was no such thing. We didn't have a Carnival bracelet in our archives. But we were talking about doing it. So I started writing this and playing with it last week and got it all up and got our graphic designer to do the project sheet. So there's a downloadable for you guys. And she did the banner and we got it up all on the website on Friday. So I was pretty happy with that turnaround.
I love Tracy saying we, you do know, everybody, that we means her. Her by her lonely on everything.
Well, it's Kendra, though, our graphic designer. She's serious backup. She does she does the heavy graphic design stuff. So let me switch my camera. But thank you, Julie. Thank you for that shout out, as we said.
I know how much you do. Behind the scenes.
Yeah. So let's see. Any questions or anything that we didn't already answer?
Now everybody's just giving you all the love they do at the end.
Oh, I like that part. I do like that part. So so thank you, you guys. I really am not sure what we're going to do next week. We'll have to figure it out, and we'll keep you posted. And let's see. Recently, Julie, we've talked about doing some resin, some what do you call it? UV resin work. So that might be fun. But we've also talked about coloring using coloring agents on our part. So I think I'll decide between those 2 and we'll figure that out and post it on Saturday. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if this would be way too boring for our viewers, but you talked about showing cleaning techniques at one point, didn't you? And I'm thinking it might be a good subject to talk about our finishes, because we're going to be replacing one of our finishes.
True. That's true. Maybe should we wait until that's done?
Yes, but just giving everybody a chance to weigh in and go no or yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. But you're right. That is a good topic. That topic is covered on our blog, so people could read about that on our blog. Let me see how long it will take me to pull that blog link up for you guys. I could pop it in here.
Oh, that'd be great, because the blog has everything, and I always forget about the blog.
Well, it doesn't have everything. Matter of fact, I was thinking there was something very recently, Julie, that I was like, we should add that to the blog. And I don't remember what the heck it
Make a
was.
note. Got to write a note.
I remember when I remember what that was, we'll do another blog post.
Oh,
Okay.
you know, Lynn, as usual, wants to see what you're wearing. Show us your cute necklace, Tracy.
I'm just posting a link to the blog post that tells how to clean our various finishes and different products and techniques. So you guys can start with that, and then maybe eventually we'll get around to the to doing a video on it. So this is.
Oh, I love that.
And here's this necklace. It's not one that's in our here, let's do this. See it a little better maybe. It's not one that's on our website. This is what I call a bead soup project. You know, I love those. So I just had, this is one of our Dulce Vita rings, and just attached with lark's head knots to some leather cord. And it's got a whole bunch of little kind of bead soup beads, some little tiny gemstones. And they're just, how close can I get to this camera? Each bead is just strung on a head pin, and I made a big simple loop and attached them all to that ring.
People are loving that.
Yeah, that's a fun project. I have a pair of earrings like that too, so maybe that is something that could end up on the website. And then these earrings are, again, these are some of our Dulce Vita rings, and I just hung them from some chain.
Really nice.
Jewelry show and tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a simple
all right, you guys. Thank you. Thank you always. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with us and watching the project. And we'll figure out next week, and we'll get it posted, and we'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye.